This is a gorilla. Your folks are both gorillas. You are a gorilla.
They propose revisions that always seem to involve less respect for the rights of free nations and less freedom for the individual. These matters would be difficult under any circumstances. They are further complicated by a trend in Western countries away from global engagement and democratic confidence. Parts of Europe have developed an identity crisis. We have seen insolvency, economic stagnation, youth unemployment, anger about immigration, resurgent ethno-nationalism, and deep questions about the meaning and durability of the European Union. America is not immune from these trends. In recent decades, public confidence in our institutions has declined. Our governing class has often been paralyzed. The American dream of upward mobility seems out of reach for some who feel left behind in a changing economy. Bigotry seems emboldened. Politics seems more vulnerable to conspiracy theories and outright fabrication.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
Now, as you may know, my running mate, Tim, is Catholic and went to Jesuit schools. And one of the things he and I have talked about is this idea from the Jesuits of the Magis, the more, the better.
Hello, everybody. We're seated here, ready for another session of Code Word Babylon today on the Sunday, April 22nd, 2018. And we are in the middle of Chapter 37, The Rhodes Gang, Instruments of the Round Table. And I'm joined here with Jörg Lissman in Belgium. How you doing over there, Jörg?
Oh, I'm quite fine. Thank you very much, Brett. I'm quite fine. I was just looking up this John Swinton. You remember that we were speaking about him in the very first paragraphs of this under chapter Rhodes' plan to control the media in Code Word Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew that I have a longer quote than this on my computer, and of course I also have a link to that so that you can put that in the description box of the video if you want, because that's actually the place where I wanted to pick it up with
Sure,
the quote
please.
of Swinton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to pick up the reading. So that is on page 379 for the people who read along. Chapter 37, The Rhodes Gang, Instruments of the Round Table. In the under chapter called Rhodes' Plan to Control of the Media. And there we are on the second paragraph where it reads, I now highlight for your attention the following statement of John Swinton, former head of the editorial staff, so that means that he was a chief editor, of the New York Times, then the preeminent New York journalist and called by his peers the dean of his profession. This is what he said to his colleagues at a New York press club. Now I'm going to read to you the quote that I have from harmlesswise.com, conspiracy quotes, and from also you can read that in namastepublishing.co.uk, John Swinton on the Free Press. And those are the links that Brett will put in the description box of this video. And that quote is a little bit longer than the one here in Code Word Babylon. It reads as follows. There is no such thing at this stage of the world's history in America as an independent press. You know it, and I know it. There is not one of you who dares to write your honest opinions, and if you did, you know beforehand that it would never appear in print. I am paid weekly for keeping my honest opinion out of the paper I am connected with. Others of you are paid similar salaries for similar things, and any of you who would be so foolish as to write honest opinions would be out on the streets looking for another job. If I allowed my honest opinions to appear in one issue of my paper, before 24 hours my occupation would be gone. The business of the journalists is to destroy the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, to fawn at the feet of Mammon, and to sell his country end his race for his daily bread. You know it, and I know it. And what folly is this toasting an independent press? We are tools and vessels of rich men behind the scenes. We are the jumping jacks. They pull the strings, and we dance. Our talents, our possibilities, and our lives are all the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. Unquote. Do you know, Brett, that when I was younger, I wanted to become a journalist?
I did not.
Now I know why God did not allow that to be. Every day to
Wow.
destroy the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, to form at the feet of Mammon, that is not what I could have probably lived with. So he
Yeah,
foresaw another way. Yeah.
that's right.
I went to the military instead. That's
Right.
not so bad, but anyway.
Oh, I had all kinds of dreams when I was young too. I
Yeah, me
wanted to
too.
do all kinds of things. But
Journalist, lawyer, and then
Mhm.
policeman, and all that stuff I wanted to
Right.
become. No, but when you read this quote, I think this is even a little bit more impressive than the one that is in the book
Oh,
here. That is a little
absolutely
bit
right.
shortened.
Yep, more detail.
And then, of course, you have to read that and keep in mind that we have the papal encyclicals Miranda Prorsus from 1958 and Inter Mirifica from 1963, in which Pope Pius XII, respectively Pope John the 23rd, they published these papers and stated that it is the inherent right of the Roman Catholic Church to use and own all media existence at that time, and by that, of course, all media still existing today. We read this part already, so I don't want to keep myself very long with it, but I just wanted to go a little bit back to it so that we are getting back familiar with the reading. And for the people who did not see last broadcast, or for whatever reason, I just want to say Rhodes' plan to control of the media is, of course, then in working together in cooperation with the Roman Catholic Church that states in their encyclicals that it is their birthright to control all media. So whenever you are working for any media outlet, you know that everything that they do is in accordance with Roman Catholic canon law, with the law of the Antichrist of the Bible. Now continuing, it reads, and now Noam Chomsky, the distinguished linguist, observed, quote, the raw material of news must pass through successive filters, leaving only the cleansed residue fit to print, unquote. It is the Jesuit Illuminati who controls most of the media, who act the part of information caddies. As Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, said, quote, think of the press as a great keyboard on which the government can play, unquote. That is a nice expression. I think that is quite vividly imaginable, picturable. How you can think of that. And by the way, Joseph Goebbels was a studied Jesuit, right? He went to Jesuit schools.
You know, it's interesting for sure. You know, speaking of musical instruments, I think Goebbels was the one who initiated a tuning standard for musicians at a higher pitch than you know, basically world standard scientific pitch has been lower than that, and it was established long time ago. A lot of orchestras still tune lower, but yeah, officially we have a higher pitch, and this was established a long time ago. And I'll tell you, when I found that out, that just completely shattered the whole musical realm for me. And I had posted some things on some web pages, or I'm sorry, some forums, and everyone just went ballistic on me. And then all of a sudden I was unveiled. The Lord was trying to show me I'm not supposed to be in recording forums. It's not a good place for Brett. No.
No, I think the place where you are in right now is much better, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right.
So let's continue reading here. We must go back to Professor Quigley once again to appreciate the extent of this media control. Carroll Quigley makes this stunning statement, quote, "The American branch of this English establishment, meaning the Round Table, extended much of its influence through 5 American newspapers: the New York Times, the New York Herald Tribune, the Christian Science Monitor, the Washington Post, and the lamented Boston Evening Transcript. In England," unquote, "in England, they controlled the Times of London and the editorship of the Observer. The Times News Group is owned by the Astor family. We saw that this strategy to control the media was expressly provided for by Rhodes' Confession of Faith." So, by the way, the Astor family that controls the Times News Group, isn't that the Astor who was put on the Titanic to be sunk in 1913?
Yeah.
Huh? He was one of the richest men in the United States of America, so I think that must be that Astor, that same family, owning the Times News Group, and it would be interesting to see who that is owned by today, but probably even by the same family. But they got rid of that one person they needed to establish the Federal Reserve System.
Sure.
Now, we saw that this strategy to control the media was expressly provided for by Rhodes' quote-unquote Confession of Faith. Thus, when on February 17, 1950, Council on Foreign Relations member James Warburg, architect of the Federal Reserve System, one of the architects, I must add here, told a Senate Foreign Relations Committee, quote, "We shall have one world government whether or not you like it, by conquest or by consent," unquote. The media remained absolutely silent. And in the April of 1974 issue of the CFR Journal Foreign Affairs, page 558, Richard N. Gardner stated that the New World Order, quote, "will be built. It will lend national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece, will accomplish much more than the old-fashioned frontal assault," unquote. Again, the media was mute, absolutely silent. Now, I just thought this is a quote that must come now from Rockefeller. Here it comes. Now note carefully the following statement attributed to David Rockefeller at the June 1991 Bilderberg meeting in Baden, Germany, attended by then Governor Bill Clinton. You remember, the Rhodes Scholar and later President of the United States of America. Just the year after that. And it is no coincidence that the year before these people are elected, they are part of the Bilderberg meeting. That's not the first time with Clinton. So he was there in June 1991, and in the end of that year, in November, he was elected president and became president in the beginning of 1992, right?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, so you see.
Wow.
Anyway, this quote from Rockefeller reads as follows, and this is probably not even necessary to read because this is so wide known. I think there's not one of our listeners who doesn't know it, but anyway. "We are grateful to the Washington Post, we are grateful to the New York Times, the Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. The world is more prepared to march towards a world government. The supernatural sovereignty of any intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in the past centuries." Unquote. Now, what Rockefeller means with this very last sentence is very interesting. You know that with the Reformation, the power of the Pope was not completely taken away, but got a serious dent, okay? Got a serious hit. The Pope lost a lot of power. Whereas before, in the Middle Ages, he was the King of Kings, and lords of lords. That means that there was no king in any country ruling that was not approved by him. No king that ruled in the Holy Roman Empire in that time, which was ruled by a German emperor, had kings, or outside there were no kings that had not the approval and that were not submissive to the Pope of Rome. Now the Reformation brought us, together with the then humanistic movement in the end of the 18th century, like the founding of the United States of America as a republic, like after the French Revolution, the turning over of the French state, and which was a kingdom all of the time, into a republic, also the Republic of France, as it still is, as it still quote unquote is today, and establishing democracies. And in many of these democracies, even though there was the head of state was still a king, like it is today in Belgium, where I live, because we have a king and a queen instead of a president. And we have a civil government that is, of course, a quote-unquote democracy, by a prime minister, the same as you have in Germany. But in Germany, they don't have a king anymore. They have a quote-unquote president. But the Danish have a king. The Norwegian have a king. Italy, for example, has a prime minister and a president. The point that I want to make, all these kinds of forms of government that are actually, or in the ideal version, should be governments from the bottom up to the top. Yeah, the power comes from the people, the power comes from the masses, and it's manifested on the top. It is a hierarchy, of course, but the power is invested in the mass, in the people, in the bottom. And when you have the other turnaround, that is the government, speaking of like democracy, speaking of like what you over there in America should have ideology, in the ideal version,
Yes.
that would be a government of the people, by the people, for the people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The opposite is a top-down government that is approved by the Pope, king, that puts his foot down, and the power comes from the top down to all the masses.
Mm-hmm.
So these are absolutely two opposites. Yeah, the government of the people, by the people, for the people, from the bottom to the top, and the hierarchical, most of the time monarchy, but can also be a fascist or any other dictatorial regime that is from top to bottom. Those are the two opposites. Now, the point that Rockefeller makes here, the supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in the past centuries. The national autodetermination, there he means all this quote-unquote republics. There he means all these quote-unquote democracies where the king only has a representative status like the president has in Germany, but he has not the full power. The president has not the secular power, or the king has not the secular power as he used to have in the time of the Dark Ages, in the time of the Roman Empire. So actually, Rockefeller tells us here that the ruling of an intellectual elite and world bankers is preferable to the, as we know it, republicanism and democracy that we have all over the world, because, we showed the world that they did not succeed. In the time of these governments, what happened? The Vietnam War, World War II, World War I, the 30-Year War, on the way to get this in the 17th century.
Mm-hmm.
It was war above war above war above war, since we have this quote-unquote auto-determinated national governments.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, we have to get rid of them, because they prove they cannot rule, they can only harm people. Therefore, we have to go back to a dictatorship, be it by a king or be it by a dictator whatsoever. We have to go back to a top-down government instead of from a bottom-up government. This is what Rockefeller actually is saying in more clear words. I hope I made myself understandable, because here and there were a few words that I couldn't express myself very well in. Did you get the point, Brett?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay, then I hope most of the other people also got the point that I wanted to make here. Now, continuing in the book, the reason for the media silence during those years was, as Rockefeller said, it would have been impossible for us, meaning an intellectual elite or Illuminati or Jesuits, to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity. The American media, by and large, are no more than stenographers of the secret government, owned and controlled by the Rhodes Society. Want of space precludes us from adding more about this very interesting subject. So, the author is cutting this short because he doesn't want to spend another 20 pages on that subject, and I would even like to spend another 20 broadcasts on this subject because I think it is so important.
Yeah.
Anyway, he says, but history has indeed shed much light on this subversive Loyolian society called the Round Table, the Milner Kindergarten, the Times Crowd, etc., etc. Why, you ask, do seemingly quote-unquote nice guys like Bill Clinton and apparently straight-laced men such as George Bush become complicit in this Illuminati Jesuit conspiracy? In one word, power! Well, let me just do another search here in my little document. And we're going to see that there is a very interesting quote about power. I hope I find that here. Yeah, I find it here. It is in the quote of Napoleon Bonaparte, where it says the aim of this organization, talking about the Jesuits, is power. Power in its most despotic exercise, absolute power, universal power, which is Catholic power, universal power, power to control the world by the volition of a single man. Yeah? That's what it's all about. It's about power. So that's what these people are aiming for when you are asking yourself, why are so seemingly nice guys as Bill Clinton or George Bush become complicit in this Illuminati conspiracy? Because of absolute power. And you know, as they say, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. These men have sold their souls. He says here, so to speak, and I wouldn't even, I would even like to scratch that, so to speak, from the record, because they really have sold their souls in exchange for a small share of power with their quote-unquote unknown superiors. Samuel Blumenfeld, quoting Bill Clinton's mentor Carroll Quigley, confirms this when he says, quote, obviously, the way the Rhodes Secret Society would recruit its future leaders from among the Rhodes Scholars was to dangle before them the prospects of future advancement in whatever field they choose to pursue, be it education, politics, government, foundation work, finance, journalism, etc. Thus, if you understand the implicit message being given to you by your sponsors, you might one day become president of Harvard, president of the United States, a Supreme Court judge, a US senator, or president of the Carnegie Foundation. The road to fame and fortune was open as long as you played the game and you obeyed the rules. The Association of American Rhodes Scholars has an alumni membership of about 1,600. They have become leading figures in the new ruling elite in the United States of America. Unquote. Thus, we know that it was after attending the 1991 Bilderberg meeting that Clinton, who at the time was a virtually unknown senator from the backwaters of Little Rock, Arkansas, unexpectedly became a front-running Democratic candidate for the presidency in 1992. What did I say in the beginning of this broadcast, Brett?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly that, right?
Yep.
And now you have 1992 and Bill Clinton. Now think a little bit back at the time of Obama.
Yeah, that's right.
He came more or less out of nothing in the
Out
same
of
man.
nowhere. Yeah.
Out of nowhere. Yeah,
Absolutely.
the same way. Now Clinton is a member of the CFR. He is a member of the Trilateral Commission. He is a member of the Bilderbergs, a Rhodes Scholar, and it seems of the Roman Catholic, as he is photographed taking the Catholic Mass or the Holy Communion in South Africa on March 28, 1998 at Regina Mundi Roman Catholic Church. That means he is taking the Eucharist. He is accepting hoc est corpus enim meum, this little wafer Jesus, to be our Lord and Savior in this little bread by this hocus pocus superstitious religion of Roman Catholicism. Did you want to say something, Brett?
Oh, well, our current president does the same thing.
In a Roman Catholic church?
No, but he takes the cookie.
Yeah, but does he take
it
the cookie in the Protestant? Does he take the cookie in the Protestant church, or does he take it in the Roman Catholic Church, including the transubstantiation? That's a big difference, right?
Well, yes and no, because I was in a Lutheran church and they call it the Eucharist now, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I just seem to think that they're corrupting it so badly. I don't trust any of those churches with what they're saying and
No,
teaching.
of course we would in the very first place not even enter one of these churches.
No,
huh?
no, not me.
No, not me either.
Nope.
So it's possible that Trump does that, but I think there is still a difference because the Pope always speaks, and you remember that Tom Prest told us that when the Pope spoke about taking full communion.
Mm-hmm.
The Protestants up to now are not sharing the full communion with the Roman Catholic Church.
Oh,
that
that's
means
true.
that they don't accept that wafer bread as
the Eucharist, yeah.
As the Eucharist as it is taught in the transubstantiation policy of the Roman Catholic Church.
Right.
So, okay. It is said that Mr. Clinton was a deep cover CIA agent in the late 1960s, while at Oxford University, and that his handler at the CIA was none other than the CIA's London bureau chief, Kurt Meyer. Bill Clinton, a spy? There's more, there's much more. The following facts suggest that Clinton's surprise selection in 1992 as the Democratic presidential candidate was rigged. Terry Reid, a former CIA operative, reveals that Robert P. Johnson, William Barr, told Clinton, quote, "Bill, you are Mr. Casey's fair-haired boy, but you do have competition for the job you seek. We would never put all our eggs in one basket. You and your state, meaning Arkansas, have been our greatest asset. The beauty of this, as you know, is that you're a Democrat, and with our ability to influence both parties, this country can get beyond partisan gridlock. Mr. Casey wanted me to pass on to you that unless you fuck up and do something stupid, you're number one on the short list for a shot at the job you've always wanted." Unquote. Okay. That job was the presidency of the United States of America. And he got it. Now read that passage again. "Bill, you are Mr. Casey's fair-haired boy, but you do have competition for the job you seek. We would never put all our eggs in one basket. You and Arkansas have been our greatest assets. The beauty of this, as you know, is that you're a Democrat, and with our ability to influence both parties, this country can get beyond partisan gridlock. Mr. Casey wanted me to pass you on to that unless you fuck up and do something stupid. You're number one on the short list for a shot at the job you've always wanted. Yeah, you fucked up during that job with this this woman, right? What was her name again?
Monica Lewinsky.
Monica Lewinsky, yeah, with the stains on that blue dress and I don't know what all. Yeah. So that of course they only did because he did something that was not according to his orders.
Yeah, the cigar and all that. Yeah.
That's how they tick these people on their fingers and say, you have been a bad boy. Now see what we can do to you when you don't listen to everything that we say, when you are not as obedient as a corpse. Mm-hmm. What we will do to you, we can take it all away. Everything that we've given you, we can take it away. It's ours to give, and it's yours to receive. That is something that you have to understand from this.
No doubt.
Now, according to Terry Reid, that was how Mr. Clinton got his job, his promotion to the presidency. As former Jesuit General Father Peter Hans Kolvenbach told his order in 2000, why does he speak here in 2006 of former Jesuit General Kolvenbach? Because he was general until 2008. So there must have been an update in the book, Brett.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That is also copyright 2009. So probably there had been a little bit update made because Kolvenbach resigned as the very first general of the Society of Jesus in 2008 and let Adolfo Nicolas over to steer the company further on. As former Jesuit General Father Hans-Peter Kolvenbach told his order in 2000, quote, "The turn of the millennium finds them in all their diversity. They are better equipped, attracting, hiring, and promoting those who actively share the mission." Unquote. Dear reader, Bill Clinton was jobbed into office by the powers that be, notwithstanding having flunked both with Oxford and Yale degrees. Indeed, Walter Walsh reminds us in his great work, The Jesuits in Great Britain, that, quote, "The mighty and widely ramified order of St. Ignatius was, and still is, powerful enough to produce by its interest far greater advantages to individuals than could any other corporation, fraternity, or even secular power." Unquote. Doubt it not. Said Cecil Rhodes, founder of the Rhodes Scholarship, quote, "My scholars must all come to my old university," meaning Oxford. "I am on the lookout for those who will do the governing of the nations in the years to come." Unquote. What's the point of all this? Are you serious? Shake yourself, rub your eyes, and sniff the smelling salts. And this brings to a conclusion chapter 37 of the book Code Word Babylon, Instruments, the Rhodes Gang, Instruments of the Round Table. And we will, without any break, except that Brett maybe wants to make a comment, of course, continue
Nope,
with
go right ahead,
30.
Jörg. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Chapter 38 starts on page 383 and it's called How the Illuminati, and you know that by that you have to understand the Jesuits, took over Freemasonry. It starts with a quote from Foster Bailey, who says, quote, "Stage by stage, they assist at the unfolding of the consciousness of the candidate until the times come when he can enter into light, and in his turn become one of the Illuminati who can assist the lodge." Unquote. Now, it is necessary, says P.D. Stewart in this book, at this stage to reveal how the marriage between the Jesuit Illuminati and Freemasonry was consummated. The reader will recall that soon after Weishaupt's new order was created in 1776, he wrote, quote, "The great strength of our order," meaning the Illuminati, "lies in its concealment. Let it never appear in any place in its own name, but always concealed by another name and another occupation. None is fitter than the lower degrees of Freemasonry. The public is accustomed to it, expects little from it, and therefore takes little notice of it." Unquote. Now, Weishaupt's plan, in his own words, was to conceal the Illuminati within Freemasonry, so that it would, quote, "never appear in any place in its own name, but always concealed by another name and another occupation." Unquote. The order of the Illuminati was to be a secret society within a secret society par excellence. Weishaupt himself, a Freemason, and knowing the inner workings of that fraternity, was well aware of its potential as a vehicle for the continued operation of his old order. For this purpose, he would use Freemasonry for, as he said, quote, "our order must always remain hidden." Unquote. Weishaupt's Illuminati would come 2 by 2 secret societies in one, Higher Masonry and Jesuitism, for he was a member of both. The Illuminati hierarchy was not only to be modeled on that of the Jesuits, but Adam Weishaupt would set up other higher degrees within Freemasonry, thereby using Freemasonry as the incubator and vehicle for the furtherance of the plans of his new Jesuit order. We read this statement earlier, but it bears repeating. Quote, "Weishaupt had hinted to several ex-Jesuits the probability of their recovering under a new name the influence which they formerly possessed." Unquote. Masonic lodges have been completely taken over by the Illuminati. Now, this sentence, I think, is very much based on documented research and says it all. And this sentence gives validation to what Tom Friess stated some years ago or months ago, and Brett knows that, of course, when Tom Friess said Freemasonry actually just is the Protestant arm of the Jesuit order. It is just another way to control all the quote-unquote apostate people that have fallen from the Roman Catholic Church, think they are working against the Roman Catholic Church, but secretly work for the same aim, for the same goal.
Yep, that's right, Burke. I agree.
Masonic lodges have been completely taken over by the Illuminati. And remember, dear listener, every time you hear us reading here Illuminati, just insert the word Jesuits. Okay? I cite the words of one of Masonry's greatest scholars, Dr. Albert G. Mackey, in support. Quote, "To give to the order a higher influence, Weishaupt connected it with the Masonic institution, after whose system of degrees, of esoteric instruction, and of secret modes of recognition it was organized. It extended rapidly into other countries, and its lodges were to be found in France, Belgium, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, Hungary, and Italy." Unquote. Because Adam Weishaupt was himself a Freemason, the Illuminati's takeover of the Masonic lodges was seamless. With the Jesuit general already in control of all Masonry, an understanding was reached with the Masonic hierarchy at the Congress of Wilhelmsbad in 1782 to add the Illuminati degrees onto the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry. Nestor H. Webster writes, quote, "It was not until the Congress at Wilhelmsbad that the alliance between Illuminism and Freemasonry was finally sealed. What passed at this terrible Congress will never be known to the outside world, for even those men who had been drawn unwittingly into the movement and now heard for the first time the real designs of the leaders were under oath to reveal nothing." One such honest Freemason, the Comte de Virieux, a member of the Martinist Lodge at Lyon in France, returning from the Congress at Willemstad, could not conceal his alarm when questioned on the tragic secrets he had brought back with him. He replied, quote, "I will not confide them to you. I can only tell you that all this is very much serious, more serious than you think. The conspiracy which is being woven is so well thought out that it will be, so to speak, impossible for the monarchy and the church to escape from it." Unquote. From this time onwards, says his biographer, M. Costa de Beauregard, Comte de Virieux could only speak of Freemasonry with horror. Unquote. Reminds me a little bit of what Ford said. Wasn't it he who said people are confronted with a conspiracy so powerful, so vast they cannot grasp of it?
I think so, yeah.
Oh no, that was Woodrow Wilson, right?
Oh, yeah, Woodrow Wilson, right.
And that people cannot only speak very silently or whisper.
Dare
when
not
they
speak above his breath, I think was the...
yeah, exactly. That's the quote. Yeah, when they speak in condemnation of it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. It's quite the same right here, but a few years earlier, of course. Huh?
Yeah, there's so many quotes.
Yeah.
That's a good one, though. No doubt.
Well, in this quote, he starts, "I will not confide them to you. I can only tell you that it is all very much more serious than you think." This is almost what George W. Bush said when he was asked about the secret society of Skull and Bones.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? "I cannot talk about it."
Yeah. We can't even talk about it or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so secret we can't even talk. Yeah. He said it almost mockingly, like, joke's on you, public.
Yeah. In that moment, he said it mockingly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to
take
a little drink.
Oh, that's good.
Now, what was so horrified Comte de Virieux about the Illuminati Masonic Congress in Willemstad? For that we must wait. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
He's not revealing that right now. That's a shame. But we see absolutely how the power of the Illuminati, meaning the Jesuits, who were abolished at that moment, and the power of the Freemasons have been melted together and become one, right?
Right. That's right.
The one is just another arm of the other.
Sure.
That's what we have to keep in mind of it.
And the two arms belong to the same man.
As the two wings belong to the same bird.
That's right. And I do believe the man is the man of sin.
Oh, you can bet your ass on that, Brett.
Yeah, I think so.
After 1782, and possible even earlier, the Illuminati was able to continue unsuspected with the existing Masonic lodges. And since Masonry is itself a secret society, the Illuminati became a secret society within a secret society. By the time of the Third Masonic Congress in Frankfurt in 1786, the Illuminati virtually controlled all the Masonic lodges, which at the time represented at least 3 million members across various German provinces, Austria, Hungary, England, Scotland, Poland, France, Belgium, Switzerland, Italy, Holland, Spain, Sweden, Russia, Ireland, Africa, and America.
Mm.
So the only thing that is left out here is Asia.
Yeah, right.
Of course, none of this was known to the rank and file members of the lodges. For as Adam Weishaupt wrote, quote, "One must speak sometimes in one way, sometimes in another, so that our real purpose should remain impenetrable to our inferiors." Unquote. One must speak sometimes in one way, sometimes in another. That means they must use the absolute power of sophistry and casuistry to give a spin to something said this way, spin it then around and say the same thing in another way or in other words. That's what Weishaupt tells us here. That is by those in the Illuminati's lower ranks. This Illuminati Masonic combine was expressly confirmed by Masonic Grand Pontiff General Albert Pike in a letter of January 22, 1870 to Mazzini, his counterpart in Italy. Pike wrote about the creation of, quote, a super-rite, which will remain unknown, to which we will call those Masons of high degree which we shall select. Through this supreme rite, Palladism, we will govern all Freemasonry, which will become the one international center, the more powerful because its direction will be unknown, unquote. In other words, this new Masonic rite or degree was to operate incognito, surreptitiously. In this way, Masonry itself of occult origins was to become merely an external manifestation of another secret power. Indeed, this power was so described by Madame Helena Petrova Blavatsky in her work, The Externalization of the Hierarchy. Further proof that Masonry is of the Illuminati is found in official Masonic chronology by Arthur E. Waite. On page 421 of A New Masonic Encyclopedia, Waite makes the following entry, quote, 1776, Foundation of the Illuminati of Bavaria by Adam Weishaupt on May 1st. Why would Waite list the 1776 founding of Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati in a work meant to deal with the chronology or history of Freemasonry? Here's a simple answer from the high-ranking Masonic author Foster Bailey. Quote, stage by stage, the hierarchy assists at the unfolding of the consciousness of the Masonic candidate until the time comes when he can enter into light and in his turn become one of the Illuminati who can assist the lodge, unquote. So we see that Masonry at the highest level admits to being, quote, of the Illuminati, unquote. Remember, Illuminati, read Jesuits.
Mm-hmm.
When does the Mason enter into this light or illumination? Now, according to Manly P. Hall, who was a 33rd degree Freemason himself, it is when he understands that the knowledge of Lucifer is his dynamo. Do you doubt this? Now read what Masonic author Arthur Edward Waite, also a 33rd degree Freemason, teaches the Mason to pray in his book, The Book of Ceremonial Magic, or The Book of Black Magic and Pacts. And before I'm going to read that quote, I want to make you understand that black magic and white magic are the same. There's no difference. It's magic that is bad. Whether white or black doesn't even matter. The quote reads, "The mysteries of infernal evocation, first conjuration addressed to the Emperor Lucifer. Emperor Lucifer, master and prince of rebellious spirits, I adjure thee to leave thine abode, in whatever quarter of the world it may be situated, and come hither to communicate with me. I command and I conjure thee in the name of the mighty living God, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, to appear without noise and without." Point. End of quote. And then the second conjuration, or invocation, I think it is even more proper to say invocation. On page 247, Waite writes, quote, "I command and I adjure thee, Emperor Lucifer, as the representative of the mighty living God, I command thee to quit thine abode, etc. Point, point, point. End of quote. Now P.D. Stewart continues this chapter by saying, I will now provide proof of Luciferianism within Freemasonry and say more on this doctrine in the next 3 chapters, which will start with the chapter 39, which is called Aleister Crowley and the Little Known Secrets of Freemasonry. And then we come to chapter
40.
40, that is, chapter
Yeah.
40. Knight Templarism, Masonry, and the Youth of Demolay. Demolay being the high priest of the Templars at that time. And finally, chapter 41, which is called Masonic Rites and Symbols, the GAOTU and his magnetism. It's going to become quite interesting, I can assure you. It was already quite interesting to read this, but I also have to tell my
don't
listeners-
forget 42, your Christian Masonry, Secret Weapons of the Jesuits.
Yeah, he said in the next 3 chapters, so
Yeah.
that I said 42 is the 4th chapter, isn't it?
No, 39.
39.
Oh, I
40.
guess it is.
Well,
Yeah.
so
But it,
I can count to 3.
Sorry.
brother.
It just deals with Masonry still. I don't know.
Yeah, you know,
But
no,
not
this-
Luciferian, perhaps. Yeah, right.
There's one thing that I want to know. We stopped reading this on this last quotes from the Book of Ceremonial Magic, or the Book of Black Magic and Pacts, a prayer that is spoken to Lucifer. And I have to tell you that I cannot remember I felt more uncomfortable the last few years while
Right.
just reading this quote-unquote prayer to Lucifer.
I agree.
makes me
I was
sick.
shaking my head the whole time.
It
Yuck.
makes me sick to my stomach
Yeah.
to even then combine Lucifer with
Yeah.
the quote-unquote mighty living God, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
It's very repulsive. I think this is why most people can't read these kind of books, Yerk, is that it just gets so repulsive, you know? And yeah, it's really ugly how this works from the top, you know? Really ugly. Got to have a lot of fortitude to want to look at this. Thanks, Yerk. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have even opened my mouth there, but
No, why?
well, this book just keeps going in that direction. You know, from the churches to the state, back to the churches, back to the state. So it's interesting, though, to know that at the highest levels of Freemasonry, we find Luciferianism, which is really Satanism.
Yeah.
So
That's correct.
yeah, it's a tough one, and you know there is that song that they sing in Mass at the Vatican. I think on Easter, when they sing to Lucifer once in a while,
yeah.
and that
Yeah.
becomes public, and you can look that up, and that is real. It is real.
Oh, it absolutely is, Brett.
Yep,
And
that's a real eye opener, I think, for any Bible believing Christian, right there.
I think I even have that on my computer as an MP3 or
Yeah,
MP4
I've got it too. Yeah.
as a video.
You bet. Yeah. Yeah, I think most of the
Roman Catholic Church chants on Lucifer. I have it here. Yeah, it's. I got it. You can maybe put that in on the end of this video.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Then people know at least what you are talking about, and that you're not talking out of your ass, as they say. You know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that would be probably a very good way to end this this chapter. But even though the book goes on and I could read on for an hour, not today, because after this quote, I really have to tell you, this took it out of me, and I don't want to be busy with that book anymore. I really need a break from this reading today.
I think
So,
that's a great idea, Yerk. We're at that point now where we are well into the esoteric, and it is really ugly, really, really ugly. and it's going to get worse.
But on the other hand, Brett, also we have to understand it is necessary to know these things.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
When you have when you want to have full understanding and you want to really understand how these people tick and why they tick the way they do, then you have to get through these things and you have to understand them. But you don't have to incorporate them.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
that's right.
It's even more important that you understand that you have incorporated Jesus Christ into every aspect of your life, of your daily life, every day.
That's right.
And
Dirk.
that becomes more important when you read things like these.
Yeah,
But then
reading
you can-
scriptures, knowing what the Lord's will is, and for His people.
Mhm.
Very important.
Yeah. Okay, Brett. So thank you for the invitation and coming to the table together with me of doing the reading of Code Word Babylon today. Would be interesting that you can do a count on how many broadcasts we had so far.
Oh boy, you know,
But,
I know it's up there. It's up there.
Yeah, the
Oh.
number is increasing almost
I
daily.
can't even say right now because I haven't updated past 60. I know we're well past 60, so probably maybe even close to 80. I don't know. I can't say. But certainly I think we're in the 70s now. So
Okay, so let's stop it for today and come together next time on page 387, starting chapter 39, which is called Aleister Crowley and the Little-Known Secrets of Freemasonry. Until then, thank you very much for watching, listening, commenting. Honest comments are always welcome. And make sure that you keep it clean, your comments, because I know that Brett has in that way the same thinking that I have concerning comments. And I made this, I wrote this on my last videos many times. Offensive and insulting comments of any kind will be deleted and the author will be banned from the channel. This channel adheres to biblical moral standards and requires the same from commentators to the videos that are published on this channel. Keep it nice and keep it Christian. Until next time, bye-bye.
thanks again, Jörg. Really appreciate the reading today, and looking forward to completing this book. We are well within, within 100. I think within 100 different recordings, we'll have it done. I think it'll be close for sure. But just another word of encouragement to our listeners out there to not get too entangled in the darkness. Find the light in the 1611 King James Bible, and you'll find many blessings in reading and praying to our Lord Jesus, because He is the one that calls us out of this world and brings us into the light of His glorious gospel. So with this, we're going to end the broadcast today, and we just hope that everything will go well in the future, and we have no idea when and how the Lord will make this go down, but just never lose sight of Him, and He will direct your path. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anyone. Just focus in on the Lord, read your Bible, get to know Him, because He will direct your way personally. And with that, we'll end the broadcast. I wish you well. Bye-bye for now.
That for the first time in human history, for the first time in all of human history, almost all of mankind is politically awake. And these new and old major powers face still yet another novel reality, in some respects unprecedented. And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. I once put it rather pungently, and I was flattered that the British Foreign Secretary repeated this, as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people, literally. It was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. It is easier to kill than to control.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict. And I believe that we've come horribly off track in the years since the fall of the Soviet Union. And we're starting now in the 21st century, which I believe strongly is a crisis both of our church, a crisis of our faith, a crisis of the West, and a crisis of capitalism.
His son Jesus is here in our midst. His bride, the church, is honored to host an event affirming the dignity of the human person and the sacredness of all human life.
I think Russia is no longer a communist state, first of all. That's very important to realize. It hasn't yet defined itself, however, effectively as a democracy. It is still uncertain.
We're at the very beginning stages of a very brutal and bloody conflict, of which if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, if the people in this room and the people in the church do not bind together and really form what I feel is an aspect of the church militant, to really be able to not just stand with our beliefs, but to fight for our beliefs against this new barbarity that's starting, that we will literally eradicate everything that we've been bequeathed over the last 2,025 years.
You didn't mention the president by name, but it was hard not to conclude that that's who you were referring to. Is that fair?
I was certainly referring to the threats that we are now facing with this stated goals of this administration, which would upset the last 70 years of a new world order, which was established after World War II. 70 years based on human rights, respect for the law, free trade, all of the things, aspects of this world order that took place after one of the most horrific, terrible wars in history, and I'm for maintaining it.
We are grateful to be citizens of one nation under God, who acclaim this evening that in God we trust. Bless our two candidates, our benefactors, and those whom the L. Smith Foundation has been honored to serve for 7 decades. Guide us safely home, both this evening and for all eternity, through Christ our Lord. Amen.